And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Good. Alrighty, today we're looking at a game that people have been asking me to review for a while, and that is Eclipse. Now, Eclipse is basically a 4X game, exploration, extermination. I don't remember what all the X's stand for, but basically it's to explore. It's a space game. It's a big space game. In fact, a lot of people have compared it to Twilight Imperium, although they're not as comparable as you might think, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Eclipse is certainly one of the most popular games that was published in 2011. It's a game that a lot of people like, and it's an epic space game that takes about, I would say, maybe 45 minutes to an hour per player. And because it's so big and sprawling, and because there's so much involved with the game, this review is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to show you how to play the game. There's plenty of stuff that you can find to do that. I'm just going to take bits and pieces of this game and talk about why I like them or why I don't like them and different things. But first of all, of course, with any game, let's look at the pieces. Well, after that plethora of pieces, and there really is a ton of pieces in this game, each player is going to get a color. There can be up to 6 players in the game, and players are going to each get a board. And you can see that there's a board here, and there's a lot of information on it. And players that for the basic game are playing one of several humans. And the thing about humans is that they are all pretty much the same. So if you play an all-human game, it's very symmetrical. However, each sheet can also be turned over and played as an alien. And aliens have different starting positions, and they also have different special abilities over the course of the game. Now, here's something I very much disagree with. The game rulebook itself says, oh, you should play with the humans first and then the aliens, so that you don't overcomplicate things. But I think if you play with the humans first, there's a good chance you won't even want to play again, because the game almost feels a little bland. But the aliens bring a lot of dash to the game. I like asymmetrical games in which you are in which you have different powers. So there's all that going on, and so I'm a big fan of the alien. Now here we have a board, and you can see all the different things that you get with this board, and there's so much to talk about. But one of the things I want to concentrate on is right here, where you have all those cubes. Now these cubes keep track of your resources, your money, your science, and your materials. Orange, pink, and brown. And over here on the side, you can see those 3 markers. Those markers are going to move along this track to keep track. Well, if I have those markers, what do I need this for? Well, the way this works here is every time I discover a new planet. So here's, for example, this alien starting planets, and you can see that there is a cube on each of these worlds, and there's 2 on the brown world. But let's say I discover another planet over here. You can see an orange, a brown, and a white. On the orange, I'll take off one of my orange cubes. On the brown, I'll take off one of my brown cubes. And on the white, I can do anything I want. So let's say I do another brown cube. Well, in that case, I look back at my sheet here, and you can see that my brown, my materials, is up to 8. My science is at 3 still. And the first one here, my money, is at 4. And so as you go out and explore and put these cubes out, your numbers will go out. I'm not sure it's the most easy system that there is in existence. It's a little clunky, especially with these cubes. And it only takes a bit of shuffling on your board, and look at the mess that it makes. But it is very unique. I haven't seen it in many other games, and very interesting. Let's jump to another part of the game now, something that is, to me, the single best part of Eclipse. and that is these spaceships. Now, you may have seen these particular spaceships before, and they look a little generic. There's 3 of them: small, medium, and super large. But these spaceships are used in combat over the course of the game. And before I get into that, let me explain that combat in this game is something that can happen, but it is very possible to play a game of Eclipse where you never fight anyone else. I guess I should rephrase that. If you're not playing me, that is, because if I'm playing, there's going to be combat. Let's take a look. Here you can see at the top of your board, you have 3 different spaceships, and you also have a orbital platform. And each of these spaceships is made up of different pieces. For example, this here, which is your medium spaceship, this spaceship right here, has an ion cannon, has a nuclear power source of 3. It also has a hull. It has gauze shields. It has a nuclear drive and electron computer. But as the game progresses, you will have the possibility to add things to it. So I might say, I don't care about this electron computer, and I'm going to add plasma missiles as the game progresses. Or I'd like to replace this ion cannon with an antimatter cannon. Of course, that doesn't work very well because that requires 4 power, and I'm only supplying 3. But I'll drop my shields to put a fusion source in here. Now I can shoot my antimatter cannon. And each of the different guns in the game uses different colored dice, and these dice are basically just so you know which gun you're shooting at any specific time, and they do different amounts of damage. And ships have different amounts of damage. That you can increase the damage of your ship by adding hull pieces. You can increase the speeds of your ship. You can increase the weapons of your ship. It's possible, and I have done it, to take these ships, especially the big ones, and put tons of guns and missiles on them and leave them almost defenseless. Or you can armor the suckers up and have fewer guns. Or you can add speed. And this is just a very fascinating addition to the game, to be able to customize your spaceships basically into whatever you want or can afford. Now, the way you afford these is with this center board. Now, this center board is a big deal. It's a big deal because there's a lot of things to set up on it, and I just was not going to set all those things up for this because it really does take a lot of work, and I think it's fair to say that Eclipse has a huge amount of setup time. But as the game progresses, there is a bag, and from this bag you are going to be pulling each turn a bunch of tiles, and then you're going to find on here where those tiles are allowed to be. So here, for example, advanced economy would go here, and a phase shield -2 goes here, and here's another phase shield -2, and here's a fusion storage, and here is advanced mining, which, okay, Vasel cannot find advanced mining, but I'm sure it's on there somewhere, and you're probably looking at it right now saying, why can't he put on advanced mining? Okay, so you have these special abilities that are out there, and this is one thing that I'm not a huge fan of the game on, because it just seems a little wonky to me that your technologies that are available to be discovered are randomly pulled from a bag. And so there's only so many. Like, for example, here you see there's 2 phase shields. So if I buy phase shields and add that to my technology list, then someone else can too. But if I buy a fusion source, nobody else can buy that for now. Now, these technologies that you buy might give you a special ability, or they might let you purchase those tiles that will let you upgrade your ships, and those tiles will be in nice stacks here, which again I didn't do, but you can pull off the different tiles. You have regular tiles that anybody can build. You can add more of the original stuff to your ship, and as you collect these research tiles, you're going to be placing them on down here to show all the different technologies. And if you get enough technologies of a certain type, there's 3 types of technologies, which is shown by a color on the chip. But as you get more of them, you have a chance to get victory points. And so if you finish a whole row here, you can get victory points. So one of the ways to get victory points in the game is by researching technology. One of the things about Eclipse, of course, with a 4X game, one of the X stands for Explore, and Eclipse has an exploration theme. And, you know, I think at this point in time that we shouldn't be surprised that it uses hexagons, because what good self-respecting space game doesn't use hexagons? As you go out in these hexagons, you are going to do two things. You're looking for more planets, and I've already shown you how finding more planets can increase your resources, your money, and your science. But you can also find basically special chips that will give you special abilities. So you cannot just sit around at home and build up a defense. What you need to do is go out and explore, because it can get you victory points, it can get you extra money, extra cash, and there is a bit of luck. The game comes with 3 piles of these, and that all depends on the positions of the planets at the beginning of the game. Now, the way this game is set up is you have this one large ancient space platform in the beginning of the game, like the old ones, and you have different each player has their home planet that they're going to put out and start. And then whenever you explore with your spaceships, you are going to turn over a tile. For example, this is the 1 ring here, so I would turn over one of these from the beginning, from 1. And you can orient these so that when you orient them, having these circles connected to each other basically allows you to go from one tile to the other tile. So you can actually block people. But then there's a pile of 2, so that's for this out ring, the one that includes your home planet. And then when you go beyond your home planet backwards, you will go into the 3 ring. And you can see here, as you come to some of these, for example, this one here, this has a tile on it that can be worth 2 points when you explore there, or you can use it right away and take $8, which can be a really big deal, especially at the beginning of the game. Now, I know I'm jumping around from point to point in the game, and you're saying, oh, come on, you're not really giving me the big picture. Well, let's try to do that a little bit here. You're an alien race. You want to win. You want to do so by points. You saw that there's some ways to get points by technology. There are other ways to get points by fighting. Let's take a quick look at fighting. When spaceships from 2 different armies fight each other and they fight, after the battle is over, you will be drawing from a victory point bag. And as you draw from these are victory points that you're going to get at the end of the game. The winner gets the draw, and if you participate, you get the draw. So the game does encourage combat. I said you can win without combat, but at the same time, combat is certainly helpful to winning. Now, when you draw from this bag, it could be 1 to 4 victory points. So the more you fight, the more points you're going to get. And this is another thing that I'm not real fond of, because this is very lucky, these tiles that you draw. And I don't know, game can be decided by who draws these tiles. This is my biggest fault with the game here, I believe, is drawing these. Combat itself, though, I love. I love having the different spaceships and the different dice that are rolled involved there. That is a lot of fun. But before I so rudely interrupted myself there with combat, what we need to talk about is how the game actually works. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the overall feeling of this game. This is a space game where you explore, you build your own spaceships, you fight combat, you find new planets, there's even a bit of diplomacy, which I won't get into, but that's very possible with other players. But when it comes down to it, Eclipse feels like an economic game. You are constantly juggling the points that you have in your money, materials, and science, and using science points, and you have this economic feel because you're trying to make sure that your empire has enough money or materials or whatever, basically, so that you can accomplish the goals that you want to do. And this is the driving force behind the game. Anyone who tells you otherwise is not really true, and this is why I think so many Eurogamers like the game, and so many people who like games like Twilight Imperium are not drawn to this game. See, Twilight Imperium, and you probably see my videos of that, is this huge, epic, sprawling space game. Eclipse is big compared to most games, but compared to Twilight Imperium, it's still kind of a baby. And what many people have told me, it's not really fair to compare the two games. Well, I disagree on that. I think it's very fair to compare them. It's just that you got to realize that they're very different birds. Eclipse looks like Twilight Imperium, but it's a Euro game in disguise. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a Euro game that's incredibly fun and includes combat. And for people who don't like combat and like interaction with other players, this isn't going to make them happy. And I think the reason this has done so well and that so many people have flocked to this game is because it kind of meets a whole bunch of these things. It has combat, and it has building your own spaceships, but at the same time it has a very strong economic flavor. And I'm talking a strong economic flavor along the levels of Puerto Rico and Power Grid and that. I mean, the game is that well designed in that regard. In fact, it's probably the best design of the game. So now let's talk about really the most important part of this game. And I'm moving these cubes to the sides here so that you can look at these discs that you have down here. Each turn, you can have these discs, and you're going to be using these discs and to take different actions, like maybe move your spaceships, or to build more spaceships, or to upgrade your spaceships, or to research technology. You know, there's different things that you can do. And as you move these discs to the different spots, and you can do spots more than once, at the end of your turn, you're going to have an upkeep fee to pay. And so the more discs that come out, the more that you use over the course of a turn, the higher that upkeep fee is going to be. And at the beginning of the game, you're simply not going to be able to afford it. But hopefully, as time goes by, you will be able to afford it. Not to mention, some of these discs are going to be pulled off permanently and stuck in other places, which will cause your upkeep fee to go. And this is really the most striking part about the economic part of the game, is that you must keep an eye on this. You must watch the ebb and flow of your money, because that will determine how many actions you have. And how many actions you have, of course, determines how well you do at the game. And so there's a lot of different things that you're balancing. Yes, this is important to balance here, and you really can't fall behind in any of them. Yes, it's possible to be someone who gets more money, or gets, so that you can control these discs better, or to get more materials so you can build more spaceships, or get more research points so you can, get a lot of technology. And I think it's a very valid point to follow any one of those three tracks more than the other ones, but you can't skip one either. You have to be able to do all of them. So this is kind of an economic strong point of the game, and I think how much you find that interesting is going to really determine whether you like the game or not. So that's Eclipse. Fans of the game are probably saying, Vasel, there's so many things you skipped. Yeah, I know, because there's just too much, and I'm not here to give you the rules of the game. You can get that from the rule book, but I guess why I'm talking about that, the game is not that difficult to understand. There's a lot going on, of course, but I mean, once you have it explained to you, or you go through the rule book, you'll get it. There is a lot of cleanup involved in the game. There's a lot of things that are going on in there, but it's once you set it up, the game, most of the games I've seen have been taking 3 hours to play, 3 hours for a 4-player game, 5-player game. So that's reasonable. It's a longer game, but it's not overwhelmingly long. You get points at the end of the game for science technologies that you've done, for tiles that you've discovered, for chips that you've gotten from battles, from special abilities from your race. There's different ways to get victory points, and you add them together, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, what do I think about the game? The fact is, I really enjoy it. I am hesitant to call this one of the best games of all time. And I'll tell you, there is a hankering that I have when I'm done playing Eclipse for Twilight Imperium, because Twilight Imperium does different things. It has a sprawling political intrigue system and massive battles and combat. Eclipse has really cool battles with custom spaceships, but I would hesitate to call them massive. Eclipse does not feel sprawling. It feels more like Foundation, the game, in a sense, as you go out and your small empire grows and you do come up with other players, but you might not have combat with them, and you still might win with technology or something like that. The technology in building your spaceships, to me, is the most fascinating, fun part of the game, and if they took that and broke it out and made their own game about it, I would be like, that would be really cool. As it is, I will gladly play Eclipse. I think it's fun. I think it's entertaining. I think it's a very strong economic Euro game with combat, which in essence is what I've always wanted to do. So how can I complain about Eclipse? I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. I've seen it appeal to a lot of people. It's a very popular game. It's certainly full of goodies inside the game. So I'm going to give this one 2 very strong thumbs up of recommendation. It's not for everyone, but it's the closest 4X space game that is for everyone that I've seen. And I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy it.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.